Greetings, everyone, and welcome to episode 3 of the Virtual Office Hours, our spring 2016 edition. We took a week off last week because of the snow, but we are now all dug out and we are back here in my office, and hopefully we won't run into any more weather problems and we'll be able to come to you every week for the rest of the spring semester. I have the Founding Fathers as with me as usual. George Washington is here. I'll actually be in Mount Vernon for a few weeks studying George Washington and the American Revolution as a fellow there at the Mount Vernon Library. So George Washington, plus his birthday's coming up, so we had special acknowledgement there of the George Washington bobblehead. Abby Blakeney, of course, behind the camera. She's back, our producer. And we're continuing our discussion of this concept of America as a Christian nation, or drawn from the title of my book, Was America Founded as a Christian Nation? A Historical Introduction. This book, as we say in every episode in this series, is going to be coming out in a second edition in the fall. So we thought we would revisit some of these themes to get you ready for that reissue, because I know you're all going to run out and buy a copy as soon as it appears. We've been working our way in the spring series through a discussion of the 18th century, and particularly the Revolutionary era, and thinking about the relationship between Christianity and the American Revolution. In the last couple of episodes, we've talked about whether or not the coming of the Revolution was a decidedly Christian event. We've talked about the differences between the planting and the founding of America, comparing the colonies with the Revolutionary era. Today we want to talk a little bit about the Bible. If you have been following contemporary events here in 2016, the presidential election, you'll know that the Bible has once again made an appearance in American politics. Some of you have seen Donald Trump, for example, hold up his family Bible and talk about how he just loves the Bible, and the Bible's where it's at, and you made that somewhat of a blunder, I guess you could call it, at Liberty University when he referred to 2 Corinthians, the passage in 2 Corinthians as 2 Corinthians. I don't think it's that big of a deal, but a lot of people are making a big deal out of it. Anyway, the Bible has been paraded around again in American political life here in this presidential election. Now, if you think that politicians and people with a political axe to grind have been using the Bible, and the use of the Bible in that realm is relatively new, all you have to do is to go back to the founding era, and you can see the way in which many of those politicians, those statesmen, if you will, were using the Bible in very interesting ways as well. The Bible is everywhere in the Revolutionary era. Don't believe someone who tells you that the founding of the United States is an entirely secular event, because the founding fathers, ministers, political pundits of all types were always referencing the Bible and applying it to the revolutionary cause. Tom Paine, a skeptic, used the Bible to justify independence and common sense, his pamphlet, for example, which he published in January of 1776. There was a political scientist named Donald Lutz from the University of Houston who studied all of the references to the Bible, or all of the sources that the founding fathers actually used in their writings around the time of the Revolution, and he concluded that the Bible was cited more than any other book. Now, to be fair, if you add up all the other books that the founders cited, like Whig political thought or the classics, they far exceeded the number of times the Bible was cited, but nevertheless, the Bible was cited more than any other book. What's fascinating, though, is the way in which the Bible was used and how it was interpreted. Most patriots who used the Bible to justify revolution were normally taking Bible passages that applied to sort of things like freedom and liberty in Christ, or freedom from sin, and these kinds of things, and suggesting that that kind of freedom also applied to the political realm. So you have constant use of passages that talk about Christ setting us free, and those things now saying, well, if Christ's setting us free from sin, Christ is also setting us free from the tyrannical taxes of the British government. At the same time, you have those who oppose the revolution also using the Bible. A favorite verse for them, for the loyalists, was Romans 13, which says, submit to your government, pay your taxes. Government comes from God. And thus many of these loyalists use the Bible to suggest that the American Revolution was in some way sinful. Read about it more in the book, but the Bible is all over the Revolutionary era. I think it's fair to say that it is an important document in the history of the American Revolution. But then if you want to think about this more theologically or in terms of biblical interpretation, it's also used in creative ways. So when you see Donald Trump or Ted Cruz quoting from the Bible to justify their political positions or the fate of the nation, this is not a new thing in American history. We'll see you next time on the Virtual Office Hours. Hope you have a good week.